Are you ready to increase your retention and revenue and convert website traffic to clients? Then you're ready for Maya. Maya is a marketing and client recruitment software. Maya creates better business relationships by pairing the right clients with the right beauty professionals. How do we do it? A matchmaker. Your brand will have its own unique matchmaking survey. By pairing people based on their skill set, budget, personality, and lifestyle preferences, Maya creates lasting relationships that keep both sides coming back for more. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. Pair the right clients with the right beauty pros the first time. Visit joinmaya.com to get started. Have you ever gone on a mission trip? We want to share an opportunity to serve the global beauty industry through the Global Stylist Scholarship. Mandy Pulse is the founder of the Global Stylist Scholarship. She takes groups of beauty professionals to various countries and continents to help train people who would otherwise not have access to learn how to cut hair. You don't have to be an educator, you don't have to be a seasoned pro. The Global Stylist Scholarship Organization has lead trainers who guide all volunteers on how to help others. This is a life-changing experience. You can apply to participate in 2025. Go to the link in our show notes to contact Mandy today.
Thank you for joining me. This is Katie Whitledge with the Beyond the Technique podcast. We have returning guest Celene Dupuis joining us again. You may remember her way back, episode 366, where we spoke about surviving and thriving. This was in the midst of the turbulence of COVID. We're actually back to talk about a different kind of turbulence. Right now, we're going to talk about smoothing cash flow turbulence, and Celene is the woman to share. And I love how transparent, open, and honest that Celene is. You're going to really appreciate today's conversation. Let me just remind you a bit about Celene. She is the dynamic CEO of Revamp Salon Company, Inc. She has over 20 years of professional public speaking experience. I've had the opportunity to see her in action. She is brilliant on stage. She is a trained little voice mastery coach and works one-on-one with people looking to become the biggest, best version of themselves. She is highly sought after both in Canada and the US. She's hosted over 10,000 hairstylists from all over the world, and her advice and knowledge have been published in multiple magazines. In fact, one of her recent publications spurred this topic and my interest in saying, hey, I feel like we need to have you here to share this, because what you're bringing up, I think, is so needed for salon owners today. She is just constantly winning awards locally in her community in the U.S. She is a retail rock star with HPSA USA. That's how really Celene and I, just reconnected, is through the High Performance Salon Academy. What an incredible group of owners. You've probably heard that come out of my mouth this entire year of podcasts, and you are now getting the privilege of hearing from these members. Celene is one of them. She's also a mentor and leader within HPSA. So without further ado, help me welcome back
Oh,
Celene. Welcome back to Beyond the Technique.
thank you. I'm really happy to be back.
This is so awesome. I just want for everybody to know, if you are listening today, you can also see the faces behind the names and watch today's episode on Beyond the Techniques YouTube channel. If you go to our show notes, we have the link for you to click through and watch it. It's so fun to see those. And that is, again, on our YouTube channel for Beyond the Technique. So, Celene, let's bring people back to the very beginning with you. You've been a speaker for 20 years, but how long have you been in the industry? Tell us how you got your start.
Well, it was actually a joke growing up that I'd either become a hairdresser or a stripper. And I chose the first route. So I've been doing hair since 2003. So it's been over 20 years. And I opened up my salon company 10 years ago. And then actually just a year, the beginning of April, I opened up a second location. So hence the cash flow talk. I went from, like, if I'm being transparent, being a profitable salon owner back into, being a brand new break even, maybe a little under break even, because I'm starting all over again with the second location. So, that's kind of what I've been up to the past 10 years.
Well, congrats on 10 years. Congrats on your year with your new brand. I'm curious for my own sake, your first salon Revamp, you now own a second salon. Tell us what the name of your second salon is and why maybe a name change?
Yeah, well, sometimes I just think I'm a sucker for punishment, but the our new location is called Blonde Beauty Bar by Revamp. We just really specialize in blondes, and 10 years, like I really we're actually in the same neighborhood. Um, but the real reason is we were like maxed out on space, not necessarily capacity, but space, and it was really affecting the amount of growth with staff. It's not fun when you're at capacity in a salon. It's too loud, too busy. Clients don't like it. Staff don't like it. There's no flexibility for schedules. So we decided to open up a second salon and really, we live in a city with 300,000 people. Blowout bars, things like that aren't super, like we don't have one. So we are full service, but our positioning is blowout bar. We have a private bridal suite. So we really wanted to do more of the specialty hair thing to help feed and build our associates so that they have access to guests when they are building their career.
Yeah, and it is not just hard to start another location, but when you completely have a new brand to build that brand equity up, it takes a lot of work. So, what's been kind of your biggest challenge in starting a second location?
I think, well, like mindset, quite honestly, like I think that when you go from being successful, I think of opening your salon. You were like probably really successful at the salon you were at, one of the top service providers. You kind of had it all cased. And then now all of a sudden you're opening a salon, you're leading people, you're learning budgets. And it can really knock you down a couple pegs, I think, because now you're back in learning mode. So I mean, I knew I was going to be learning, but it had been a while since I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. So I think that's been a challenge. And then I think being okay with the fact that like I'm not profitable anymore. Like when I opened up Revamp, I just didn't know. I probably had like I thought I was probably doing great, but I didn't know anything about business. So it's kind of like your first child. I only have one child, but I can imagine I had no clue what I was doing the first time. So if I was screwing something up, I wouldn't have known otherwise. Well, where now this is like my second baby. I know what healthy numbers look like. So there's just a new level of anxiety that comes with that.
Yeah, I could appreciate you sharing the mindset thing because you think, you've kind of mastered most, not all the things about being a salon owner, but now with your second, you're like, oh crap, what did I
Yeah.
do? Are we in trouble? How come, what do you think is the reason that a lot of salon owners, what do they just open another location or they're in the midst of their flagship location and they're struggling with cash flow? Why do you think that is a problem that so many owners can relate with right now?
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, obviously, we're in our economy, whether you're in Canada or the United States or elsewhere, our economy is struggling. There's recessions. There's people like many of us are still overcoming the challenges of COVID. In Canada specifically, we just had our CEBA repayment. So our COVID loans were all just the extension just came up. And so a lot of people who borrowed money and were told it'll be easy to get a loan to pay it back were refused loans. And so, I mean, I think
Mm.
specifically in Canada, we're probably going to see a lot of businesses now that were not able to get funding and have lost $20,000 in loan forgiveness. So I think it's just like it's the climate that we're living in realistically.
Yeah. Have you seen a shift in consumer spending? Like, is the demand
Absolutely.
more? Okay, go on.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are just stretching their appointments out more.
Mhm.
Um, I think that staffing is harder. It's an issue. I think it's been an issue for a lot of people after COVID. What I would say is like, so my friends in HPSA from the States, a lot
Mhm.
of them were like, well, we have so many clients that want their hair done after COVID, but not enough staff. I mean, where I live, it's kind of been twofold. It's been both. So I feel like, I mean, the big shift in my economy, I'm sure in many places, minimum wage for us started around $10 an hour. I know it's different everywhere you live. It's not about the number, but 10 years later, we're at like close to $16 an hour. So when I used to build an associate up, 6 months to a year, and they would be earning wage. And like once they're at that break even, like they switch over to, sorry, they'd be earning commission 6 months to a year. That switch would happen. They're
Yep.
starting to make a little bit of that break even point. So we'd carry them for, up to a year. Right after COVID, it kind of moved around a year and a half. Now it's 2 to 2.5 years. We're having to hold employees on wage because our minimum wage is so high that commission shift has changed. And so if I want to hire, like I used to have a rule, like 1 or 2 wage people at a time. And it was like, okay, 6 months a year, you get the next couple in, you train them. And it was like a really great, like
Cycle.
it worked.
Mhm,
It's a great
mhm.
cycle. Now I'm holding people for, I have 6 people on wage and I'm holding them for 2.5 years. So a lot of people are struggling with cash flow because our payroll costs, like mine right now, are sitting close to probably 80%, which is
Wow.
insane. So I'm going to have
Wow.
to figure out budgets and where I can cut because it's either don't hire or be high on payroll. So I think that's I think my opinions on top challenges on why
Yeah.
cash flow is an issue.
Well, and in the US, a lot of our costs on everything else went up, but was that the same for you for cost on
Absolutely.
back bar and all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all know like the glove analogy. It was like $9 a box. Now it's 19.99 a box. Or if you want the nitrile, it's 23.99. I mean, costs have doubled and tripled, and our brands continue to obviously raise their prices as well. So, I mean, it's all so having good tools in place, like I think when times get tough, people will cut they'll cut their advertising budgets, they'll cut their business coaching. Like sometimes we cut the wrong things, and like
Mm.
full transparency, like we were with you, and around COVID, like we had the Meet Your Stylist at the time, the Maya quiz, and it was like, what can we cut? Like we don't even know if we can keep the doors open. And so we've been back with the Maya quiz because we're like, we need butts and chairs. And like, I mean, unreal that in 3 weeks we had 20 new appointments and like 170 leads. So
Wow.
it's like, man, like I it's just one of those things. Sometimes we make decisions and we cut the wrong thing instead of
Mm.
trimming expenses or finding out how you can earn more, be more productive, have more profitable pricing. We're cutting the things that we shouldn't be cutting.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and not just for Maya's sake, which obviously feels good because I'm biased, but in my head, marketing has to solve this problem. Here's why. I think as owners, and you can tell me what you think about this, we have no choice but to pass the cost on to our consumers. And if they're going to pay more for us to be able to operate in a new kind of business model and setup based on our expenses and our payroll, there is no other choice in my mind, or we risk really, we either the team suffers because they're going to have to take a hit, or the experience of the guest suffers if we're cutting aspects of what they experience when they come in.
Yeah,
um so we did make little shifts in amenities, like we didn't offer 4 different types of tea, we now offer one. There
right.
were like things like that. It's like, can this make a difference? But how do you feel about passing this on to the consumer, and then what needs to happen to kind of justify or almost like compete at a higher level to keep and maintain those clients and fight for new ones in the midst of really being a part of more competition than ever?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's necessary. Like I'm an ambassador for Salon Scale, and I mean, Alicia, the inventor, lives in my city. So I mean, we've adopted it really early on. And I mean, I introduced them to HPSA, and that changed COVID, that changed profitability for so many people. Because if you're not doing parts and labor, like I think there's so many salons and stylists that still have so much fear wrapped around letting your client pay for the cost of the color or separating to a parts and labor type pricing scenario. And I mean, the reality is why is our industry the only one that doesn't do that type of pricing model? Like it doesn't make sense. It's also you're charging based on a guess. Like, I'm going to guess that you are, an average of $20 for your color or whatever it is. But again, if that guest has fine, thin hair and they only use $12, like now you've actually taken money from your guest. But we know the flip side is it's typically the opposite way where we're losing money because we're using more color. But also, I think there's more transparency. And I think we can do like fair trade coffee and like all the different things. I'm like, we almost think of it like fair trade pricing. It's like, we want to be transparent. We want the consumer to see what they're paying for, but we want to make sure the value of our service is matching, because as costs rise, that's why you're going to lose guests if they feel like value has also gone down, but costs have gone up. I mean, they're not, it's like about creating that 5-star experience, which I learned this from Shelby Bills, another HPSA mentor. But like the experience is taking care of the human, right? But many of hairstylists are focused on giving 5-star service, and that's different. But we really need to start digging into taking care of the humans that come into our businesses.
Mm-hmm. There's so much to unpack there for owners listening that really don't understand how does separating parts and labor play out. So the client comes in and they pay, let's say, $100 for their roots and a glaze. Like, so it's basically an all over color. Just start very simple. Of the $100, what happens to that money? How is that broken down in this model of parts and labor?
Yeah, that's great. So like the old way, the guest method, like the salon owner would have been like, well, on average, we say $20 of that 100 would be color. And so they build it into the price. But again, that's guest method. You're guessing because no two heads of hair are the same. So with the parts and labor model, you're paying for the labor. So just like if I went to a mechanic, if I took my car in and I'm like, hey, listen, my muffler is making a loud sound. And they're like, yeah, that's because you're dragging it behind your car, Celene. You need a new muffler. They wouldn't be like, we'll just build that into the shop price and we'll cover the cost of the muffler. Like they don't do that. They'd be like, okay, the part costs $150. And now make no mistake, do you think they're giving that to me at like their cost? Absolutely not. They're marking it up. So if that cost them 70, I don't know how much a muffler is, $75, and I'm paying $150 for it, I would be paying for the muffler. And then they're like, it's going to take us 3 hours to, install said muffler. And your shop rate is $100 an hour. So here's your total bill. So same thing in the hair industry. It's like, you're going to pay for your highlights. I'm going to use a Bluetooth scale that knows exactly how much, like per ounce or per gram or whatever you measure in, how much it costs, and it'll actually give me the total. So now I can give you your bill and be like, all right, $100 for your color. And it's been 6 months since your last highlight. So your product charge today is $32.50. Now that's great for a lot of reasons, because we'd love, how many stylists would love their guests to come in more than twice a year? So like if you start coming in at 3 months, your product cost will actually be lower because we use less product. So it'll be different every time they come in, depending on what they're having done. So it really allows that transparency.
So on the checkout ticket, the guest will see their cost for product separate from the service portion, correct?
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
when you pay out your team members, they're just getting their commission on the service portion and they aren't getting anything for the caller, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And as a salon owner, if you break that down, like it's kind of crazy. Like I would buy the tube of color, just say a tube of color is $10 just for easy math, right? And then my stylist would do the highlights. And now I've paid the $10 for the color. And now if that stylist, it's $100 if you had it built in. The stylist gets to keep 50 if you had 50% commission, and then 50 goes to the salon. But I've paid for the $10 in color. So now I have 40. And then once you take off, payroll and taxes, and like the reality is they probably use more than they were supposed to, and maybe didn't charge for a second bowl, or however your salon would handle that. A lot of salons would be like, well, it's $10 a bowl, $15 a bowl. So if they forgot to ring it out, then I could be down another $10, and now I'm left with $30. And then not only that, like in Canada, payroll taxes on average is 20%. So if you live in California, you have similar taxes to us. It's crazy. We're almost left with nothing anymore. So
It's so true. Mhm.
It's very true. And so with something like Salon Scale, or if you use a, another brand, you do have opportunities. We actually pay a commission out. So we have like unlock bonuses where if you hit this benchmark, this KPI, we'll pay you 10% of all your Salon Scale, or we'll pay you 20%. Some salons put that into an education fund, or a wellness fund. Some will put it into retirement funds. So there's a lot of things you can do where you can commission out what you make on that. But then the markup of the color, you should, if you're going to bonus that out, like most salons, like you could do 100% markup, but then what about your back bar, your foils? A lot of salons are doing anywhere from 125 to 150, like 150% markup on your color, lightener up to 250 to 300%. So that, because again, if we're bonusing it out, who's paying for that? All of that has to be considered if you want to remain profitable. There's nothing worse than creating a bonus structure and then realizing you can't afford it. So you need to really look at that before you build that structure out.
I imagine owners listening thinking like, I want to do this. This makes so much sense, but how do I explain it different than a back bar charge, which used to be poo-pooed upon, right?
Yeah.
And like many owners are like, I'll never do a back bar charge. How do we mitigate the feelings of that from our team? And how do we encourage them that in this model they won't lose?
Yeah, I love that. So I think it just comes down to showing them the money. Like there's different ways to do it. Some salons would be like, okay, well, if I charged $100 for a color and now I'm going to charge the client, like maybe I should put my color to 80 and take that out, right? I never did that because I'm like, how can I just didn't feel like I can tell my team now your service, I was paying you commission on this before, so now we're putting your prices down. So instead of a price increase, that's when we introduced, like the time it would be time for us to do a price increase, we just introduced Salon Scale. And I would say for us, we started off at, I think I started off at a 75% markup. And then I was like, my goal is to get to 120%. But I'm going to start off at 75%. So it's not too large of a jump for the guest. And we just had a really smart plan. It's like every 3 months, it's going to go up another 10%. And I mean, we maybe had one guest that was like, what does this mean? I think when you're having those conversations with your staff, it's like, first of all, how many of your staff members have lost clients because they're like, have had client or staff quit. And then a client that maybe stays with us at the salon is like, I never knew what she was going to charge. One time it was 250, the next it was 300, the next it was 375. So it can actually affect our guest retention because there's no transparency in the way we're charging and the pricing. And to be honest, 75% of stylists, this is in my opinion, made up, like this is from the book of Celene's fake stats. 75% of stylists, I don't believe, talk budget or explain it to their guest. So all of a sudden now it's like, listen, how many of you feel anxiety when you have to quote a guest and you realize that once you're in it, it's going to take way more work than you realized, but you didn't quote properly. So now it's transparency. It's like for a guest, you know what? You're only going to pay for what you use. So in the past, salons have charged in a guess method where we guess how much we think your color is going to cost. But what I do know is if your hair doesn't take as much color, we might be overcharging you. So what you'll see on your bill today is you'll see the charge for your highlights, and then you'll see a separate charge for your color. So our Bluetooth scale, just like you only pay for what you use and no more. So that's beautiful because if you come more often, your product charge will cost less. But, if you're going to come twice a year, you may end up paying more because we need double the product. So let's figure out what works for you for appointment time, how often you want to be sitting in our chair, and then we can have a really transparent breakdown of what you're paying for. So it takes the ease
Mhm.
off the stylist, really.
Yeah, I think that you hit it on the head, and we could all work to help empower our team to have more of those conversations around budget. Because I can tell you personally, my own little story, real quick. When I see my med spa professional to do injections, every single time I'm filling out on her iPad, I sign the things. I don't have a current infection. I haven't had any, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then I also am agreeing to the cost, and it's so upfront and
Yeah.
professional. even though I'm in this cool, awesome, and fun environment, I'm excited. It is so like medical professional with that particular part of the
Yeah.
stuff, that consultation. And I appreciate that. I think we all should be like, you know what? We're like that. We should
Yeah.
be that professional and do the same. So yeah, I agree that that's huge. And you mentioned something about the difference between a 5-star experience versus human. Tell us, what does that mean for you and your team?
Yeah, like for us, we actually just did this team meeting. And it's like, first of all, I think you have to establish what five-star experience is, because if your teams are anything like mine, 75% of them are under 20. So, I mean, I asked my team, I'm like, in the city I live, what's the fanciest restaurant that you've ever eaten at? And honestly, it was like a chain restaurant that like good food, but just like a chain. It's not 5-star. There's no linen on the tablecloth. And like, so they don't know how to give a 5-star experience if they've never received it. As well, like you go into somewhere, like I just got back from a hair event in Santa Monica, and I had some team with me. And quite honestly, like some of the girls had never purchased in a place like Dior or, and you know, you might not be able to afford that, or you might not value that and want to spend your money there. But a lot of people would feel uncomfortable even walking through the doors. And it was like a friend we were with purchased something. And so I prepped my team. I was like, I want you to watch. Like we talked about 5-star experience. I'm like, they're not, as soon as they see that someone's serious about buying something, they're going to offer us water. And like, it's going to be, and sure enough, like my girlfriend started trying on the belts and a couple bags. And all of a sudden they were like, would you girls like some water? We've got sparkling or still. And they bring it out on the silver tray. And with like one of the girls I was with stole the napkin because it was like literal like material, right? And it was like fun for people who've never seen that to see the level of experience, but also the level of snobbery from some of the staff. So it's like your staff might not be able to afford to go to the most fancy restaurant in your town, but like, you know, we'll challenge them. Go sit at the bar and have a drink. Go have a dessert. Don't go during the dinner rush because you're going to feel kind of silly, but like go like half an hour before the restaurant's dinner rush is, like, you know, right at the end of it, and like have a dessert and a glass of wine. Like, can you afford a $20 glass of wine? Go have a glass of wine and see what the level of service is like so you understand what that looks like. So I think that's really important because it's not just giving like a really great technical service. It's from front to back. And like, what is a 1-star? What's a 3-star? What's a 5-star? And again, Shelby Bills, this is all her gold. Like I can't take credit for it, but I mean, I'm sure all of us have done that before. You send your team out to another salon to experience a blowout, or you know, I think it's really breaking down like, what does 1-star look like for us? What does 3-star look like? So 3-star to me is just meeting expectation. Your stylists are doing what they're supposed to, but no more. And what would a 5-star experience look like? And it'll be different everywhere, but you have to know, you've had to experience that level in order to be able to give it.
Yep. Yeah. Ah, there's so much here. Like, I love it. I have so many takeaways and notes that I'm writing down. For you in overcoming kind of the turbulence of cash flow, what are just things that you're doing or being really proactive about? I know you mentioned Maya and really creating that awesome digital lead gen. What else are you doing to ensure that you are getting the cash in the door?
Yeah. And here's the first thing I would say. My number one pet peeve is like all of these business coaches who are wearing masks and not being transparent. Like I've sat in classes with business coaches who like you know, don't even like run a team, but they're teaching on team build. Like it just doesn't make any sense. And so I also hate like the fakeness of everything's fine. And so I think like in order to be a good coach, you also have to take down your mask, and like cash flow is a problem in my business. And I think that's where we can start. I'm having struggles just like, you know, our listeners, your listeners, they're mine now too, I guess.
Yes.
The listeners are having challenges. So am I. Like, but it's like, how quickly can you make the adjustments and what can we dip into? It's like remembering 30, 60, 90 days can completely shift your business. So if you're struggling right now, like things can get so much better in 30 days, even better in 60, and like your business could be different in 90 days. So it's okay. I would say the top things, I realized I needed, like, what do we need? Okay, not only do we need new butts and chairs, we need better client retention. So what are your resources? Well, I guess I better put my tail between my legs and be like, Katie, you were right. I never should have canceled that Maya subscription. But it's like we're back and I'm getting lead generations, new guests, but I'm not seeing it yet because we're only a month in, but I know it's going to increase our client retention. So we set a realistic goal 4 months from now. By June, my goal was to bring up my retention by 15% because I think the 5-star experience, the problem is that we're always focused on new guests, but then we're taking advantage and not treating the guests in our chair. If you do the math and you see how much money you're losing in guests that never come back, because Salon with 20% retention, that's new guest retention. Average new guest retention in our industry is about between 20 and 30%. So that means if you have 10
Mm,
guests, you're keeping 2. That means you lost 8. Right. And so what's your
massive.
average ticket? If it's $100, that's
Mm,
$800. And then times that by 12, that's a lot of money, right? That's walking out the door. So that's number one, is like working on your new guest retention. And butts and chairs. I think honestly, having the right team, like we've recently switched to a profit first accountant. Um, and I mean, they actually, so I had been doing profit first, but my accountant never understood. So, and it's an American accountant. They're called Grow Green. If you Google them, you'll probably find a lot of weed websites. So just forewarning, I think they're changing their name to True Profit, but like find yourself an accountant that like will act like a CFO, not just do your books. So it's like
Mm,
my accountant is diving into cost analysis for me, like really like they're helping me lead. I was like, okay, I've got a new fee for Maya. They're like, Kate, we're gonna look at they broke down the price. How many new guests? Okay, well, Celene, this has already paid for itself, so it's fine, right? But like, what are the other things we can get rid of? So I think making your accounting team, and then I would say like sometimes just kick it old school. Just pull up your credit card receipts and highlight all of your fixed expenses and all of your variables. And it's amazing when you do a deep dive from 4 months. It's like, oh, okay, well, I can get rid of this subscription. I can probably get rid of this. And then renegotiating everything yearly that you
mm.
can renegotiate. So renegotiating your point of sales system, like your credit card machine. We ended up switching credit cards. I did this a year and a half ago. We saved $400 a month by switching
Wow.
processors. I cut my alarm company bill down in half. I'm in the process of switching payroll because they kept bringing up my rates, and so I looked around, found one. I'm going to save $600 a month. Every
Wow.
year, you should call every one of your vendors and say, like, here's my rate. I'm wondering, I've been a loyal customer. I love your service. I'm wondering if you can give me a more competitive rate. And like sometimes you can save 3, 4, $500 a month just by redoing that every year. So anything you can negotiate that is a fixed expense, utilities, like some things aren't negotiable, but some are.
I think what you're saying is so important. I just love how you are showing up to all the things you know you have to do. The
Yeah.
hard things that we kind of want to set it and forget it and just sit back and chill. And we don't have that luxury right now.
Yeah.
If you are not as thirsty about your business as you are the first year of opening, we got to go back to that because
Yeah.
it's going to be needed. And you are doing that. I love all of your tips. Um, if I may offer one piece for you and everybody listening
Please.
on the retention. So, not only retaining new clients, which is where Maya can predict that outcome for everybody and helps increase that over time, but we okay, you know how I am with marketing emails. We inundate our list of subscribers at the salons with 3 to 4 marketing emails per week. For most owners, it's like, that is so much. I feel like I could never. But yet, look at your favorite brands who are sending you how many notifications per day,
Yeah.
and you don't
Absolutely.
unsubscribe. You're just like, oh, whatever. I don't want to look at it right now. And so we need to kind of get over that mindset about it. But we have a new team member at our new second location. It's been open, what, 6 weeks? No, 2 months now. So our second location has been open 2 months, but we have a new team member there, zero clientele, fresh from beauty school. Her first week behind the chair, we got aggressive. We sent out an email that we've done in the past to give a specialty price on our specialty curly haircuts, which is one of our niches, and then any color service.
Right.
And we've always sent this out, but this is the biggest change. We shifted this subject line to say on a budget question mark. Dang, that the open rates soared, and that girl's whole week was booked in, and she's now the most booked at that downtown location of any of the stylists there. And now
Yeah.
I will tell you the prices that we did, and you're gonna kind of cringe a little because the color, we just did one flat price, and she is hourly. She's not on
Right.
commission. So we did for your curly haircut, it is $49. That is a specialty price for that specialty service.
Right.
And you can also get any color for 99.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm seeing. Like you will keep all the consumers that you've like you have served, and they get number one, get in front of them over and over and over and over. So when they finally are ready to buy, they're thinking of you. And number
Yeah.
two, if you feel like people are really truly as tightened up in their pockets as we are as owners,
Hmm.
then maybe try something out where you're not giving a discount, but you're positioning a service at a special price for a limited time with specific people. And let's just test it and see how it goes. That's my 2 cents.
I think that's genius. I think one of the biggest changes I've made in the last month. It's like, okay, we re-signed up for Meet Your Stylist or Maya now. Sorry, I'm
Yep.
still from the
You're
old
good.
generation
You're good.
with the rebrand, but with Maya, but it was like, okay, we need to get on automations. So and as well for hiring. So creating that, like learning how to automate some of that, creating that drip. But then I was also like, we need to increase our SEO. So we actually launched a blog a month ago, and our very first, and again, I'm just like another thing to add to my plate, but with AI, like I'm writing it right now because that's just where I'm at. I don't have the budget for someone else to write it, but we need to increase our SEO for our new location. And so what a perfect time when you're launching this amazing, we're calling it our Stylist Soulmate Quiz. So our very first one, like how you said, like on a budget, our very first one was how to break up with your hairstylist. And it's like, we've always done stylist swapping, but it was basically like teaching you how to break up with your hairstylist. And then, but also we have this great quiz where you can find the right person for you. And maybe you're part of our company and it's not the right fit. Take the quiz and find the right fit. Or maybe you're coming from another company, come to us because we can help you. And then number two, the second podcast was any hair color on, like great hair color on any budget. And so exactly, like these are the topics that like people are needing to hear about. So I think like, maybe you don't have a blog, but maybe you can create a series of posts around these topics to get those people in the door. Cause you need something that is like, oh man, I'm on a budget, or like, I've been thinking about breaking up with my hairstylist forever, but we know they'll stay with a hairstylist that they hate the way you do their hair, but they just feel loyal to you. So we need to provide kind of those controversial topics sometimes so that we can get that moving.
Yeah. And I would say do the blog, because
Yeah.
successful people are willing to do what others aren't willing to do. So,
Yeah.
when you think about your big goals, Celene, for both of your companies over the next 6 months, we're still in 2024. What
Yeah.
are your big goals for your companies this year?
Oh, well, I think this year, I think my big goal is to, we're kind of like in recovery mode, like to get into profitable mode again. So I'm reevaluating a lot of our partnerships. Sometimes maybe we've been in partnerships with brands or, it could, for some people, it honestly might be certain staff members that are no longer serving us. Like my values have changed. And the level of expectation on what I'm looking for in my brands are changing. And I want to make sure that I'm in alignment. I think getting really clear so it's really diving in, like as a hairdresser, By trade, I used to pull the old, like I had a math tutor. I'm like, I'm not great at math. I'm an artist. It's like, that's not an excuse anymore. Whether a lot of people are triggered the minute you talk about math and money, me included. So it's like, okay, I need to make the right partnerships. I had to switch accountants. That was tough. Um, but making sure that like I'm showing up even if it's uncomfortable. So it's like you're gonna grow through that uncomfortable period, and I'm just gonna have to be here for it. And I mean, at the end of the day, we opened a second location because we had a 7-chair salon and we're maxed out. And it's like, I don't know what the future of my company holds. Maybe I'll put the two together. Maybe if they're both wildly successful, maybe I'll keep them as separate. I've got a lease coming up at the end of the year on my one location, so I'm going to have to make decisions there. I don't know where we're going. What I do know though is that it's not about, being worried to fail or seeming successful. It's about being realistic about what's going to be the healthiest decision for our team and our business. And we just want to set ourselves up so we can keep growing, but also do that like in a healthy way.
I just want everybody to know, like, Celene is so dynamic. You're hearing it firsthand. We have the links in our show notes for you to check out her brands and herself on Instagram. And if people are like, I want to be around you and the people like you, where should they go, Celene?
Great question. So, I think the game changer for me, honestly, was building a community of like-minded salon owners, and that can be tough in your own communities. I do have a great community in my city, but again, like joining HPSA, I am a member. I'm not just a mentor with them. Like I pay like full price, the fee to be part of that group, but it's salon owners that like everything I shared today. Like again, like I said, so many coaching companies or so many coaches want to make it like none of this was my idea. I'm great. I'm great at like sharing an idea and making myself sound really smart, but it's the people that I actually surrounded myself with that taught me all of this, right? But it's turning info into knowledge. Like you can take all the classes and hear it, but if you don't actually apply it, so not only did I hear it and did I surround myself with the right people, I actually tried it, right? And I think that that's the step that many of us miss is we're like, well, I know that. I know that. Okay, but have you done it? Like, and I think when we can drop the mask and be like, okay, listen, I have 2 salons and like my mental health struggles sometimes. My cash flow, we struggle sometimes. We struggle with staffing sometimes. Like that's real. So I feel like for me, that's the community of hairdressers that I'm around through HPSA.
Yeah, I love it. We are a little bit further along than I normally am in podcasts, but that's because I could talk to you forever, always. Before we're done, would you have any final words of encouragement or wisdom for the owners listening today?
Yeah, I would say I learned from my coach that, when you feel overwhelmed, it's like, how do you eat an elephant? It's like it seems impossible, right? It's just one bite at a time. So, I would say like figure out what it is you need to do, and it's like, what can I do in the next 24 hours? Like, what's the first step? And what's the next step in 7 days? What's the next step in 30 days? And if you break it down into small pieces, like I think it takes away the overwhelm. So if you're in that state of overwhelm and you're like, I don't know if I can make it, it's like I would just say like, some of the tips we talked about today, what can I do in like 30, 60, 90 days? Because your business might be in a totally different place 90 days from now and you're ready to quit today. And so it's like you're not alone. Find people who are willing to drop the mask and not pretend everything's perfect all the time. And when you can find, I think like building that community will help you get through that 30, 60, 90 days.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Celine, and sharing all of your wisdom with us. You're amazing, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you. It was exciting to be back.
All right, everybody. Well, we're excited that you are here week after week at Beyond the Technique. If you appreciate this platform, we would really love it if you could take a moment to leave us a review wherever you're listening so that more people like yourself will discover Beyond the Technique, where we're here to change the way that you are supported in your business. Until next time, everybody, have an awesome day and stay strong.